there are a lot of potentially really good candidates who could raise the Republican banner high and mount a very serious challenge to Andrew Cuomo. So I think in the city in particular, there's a tremendous concern that things are not as they should be.
So that is former New York Governor George Pataki there saying New Yorkers should seriously consider a hard look at recalling Governor Cuomo over what he called the reprehensible cover-up of nursing home deaths in the state. Pataki's comments come after Cuomo's top aide that served there, Melissa DeRosa, made the shocking admission that her boss underreported the amount of nursing home coronavirus deaths by nearly half, so the feds wouldn't find out. Joining us now to discuss is Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, Republican from New York. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm just curious to get your thoughts on what you heard former Governor Pataki say about possibly wanting to remove Governor Cuomo from office, and then keep in mind that the differences in New York, what you can do in California, what we've seen these efforts with Gavin Newsom. I don't believe that could happen in the state of New York. So what could be the biggest challenge of trying to get Cuomo out of office, or is that even possible?
Well, that's correct. New York does not have a recall law like California does, although when we were in the state legislature, I was among those who co-sponsored a bill, but it never became law. So unfortunately, recall is not an option. However, I do believe that Governor Cuomo's time in office is dwindling, and I believe that he's either going to leave by resignation, because we have a lot of bipartisan calls for something to be done here, and we think resignation would be an appropriate action by a governor who was leading an administration that, number one, mandated the executive order that led to so many deaths in nursing homes, and his mishandling of nursing homes and not utilizing those alternatives like the Javits Center, the U.S. Navy Comfort Ship, and other emergency facilities that were set up to capacity. So he continued that executive order even after there were alternatives. So certainly there was negligence there. Then there's the option of possibly prosecution. We know that the Department of Justice is investigating what occurred here. They initiated an inquiry back in August. It became public that they were investigating the Cuomo administration in October. And my colleagues and I pushed the new Attorney General. We're writing and urging him to continue an independent investigation, which should now be expanded to include this alleged cover-up, or is it admitted cover-up, by his chief of staff. And then the third option, of course, is the governor is up for re-election next year, and the third option would be kicking him out at the ballot box. But I'm not so sure that he's going to be inclined to run a fourth term. As you know, as Governor Pataki was the one who took out his father when his father attempted to run for a fourth term and outdid his welcome.
Do you see Governor Cuomo resigning?
I think that's a great possibility. I do believe that the governor is stubborn. He thinks that his ego is going to control what he does, which means that he probably would not be inclined to want to. But we're seeing growing calls from bipartisan group of lawmakers that are saying that something needs to be done. He must be held accountable. We need to have justice for these families. And we know that every week there seems to be more and more being uncovered in this scandal. We know now, but we didn't know back then when we were first calling for that investigation, number one. Then the Attorney General came out with a report saying he underreported the deaths by 50%. Originally, they were saying about 6,500 deaths, and it was about 8,500 deaths. And now we learned that it's more like 15,000 deaths as a result of his March 25th executive order. Then we found out that he even was dishonest and covered up the number of individuals that were positive that were put in the nursing homes by about 40%. So now we know, according to Associated Press reports, 9,000 individuals were positive and put in these nursing homes with the most vulnerable in our society, the most likely to succumb to COVID-19. So I think you're going to just hear growing calls. And as we learn more and more, I think it's just the heat's going to be turned up even further. And I have a petition, by the way, on my website. If you go to enoughcuomo.com, you can sign my petition to demand resignation.
I want to ask you about this. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki actually asked about the coronavirus nursing home death controversy. This is what was said.
not to give anyone a stamp of approval or to seek their stamp of approval, and to discuss the urgency of passing the American Rescue Plan. And he's committed to partnering with governors and mayors. Governor Cuomo is, of course, the governor of one of the largest states in the country, one of the places where the pandemic hit hardest, the earliest, where there's still many Americans who are continuing to struggle to get vaccinated, to make ends meet. And so it was important to have him as a part of the meeting.
Congresswoman, when you hear that, do you want to see more done from the White House? Do you want to see pushback from the White House based on the facts and the evidence of what we've seen so far with the nursing home deaths and the cover-up in the state of New York?
Absolutely. But the one thing they should be doing is ensuring that this investigation continues independently without any interference. And that's the number one thing that I and my colleagues in Congress are calling for. We need answers, and we need it to be done independently. But the interesting thing here is that the Biden administration actually appointed Ms. DeRosa, who's the one who admitted about the cover-up in the Post that we learned about this over the weekend. They actually appointed her to be an advisor for COVID. Imagine an administration that actually advised, or not even advised, forced nursing homes to take COVID positive patients, whether they can care for them or not. And then someone who admitted to knowing and perhaps even participated in a cover-up is actually advising the Biden administration on how to deal with COVID. That's the outrageous part. And I've actually written to the president asking him to remove her from that advisory position.
I want to switch gears before you go. I've got to ask you about this outrage growing after Congresswoman Ilhan Omar gets a promotion. The Minnesota Democrat was named the vice chair of House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee. This was last week. Omar has made a series of anti-American comments in the past, especially about 9/11. I'm curious your thoughts on it. Is she the best choice for that role?
Absolutely not. I've actually said that she should be removed from her role as a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. She has spewed anti-American rhetoric. She has spewed anti-Semitic rhetoric. She should not be serving in any way representing our nation on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I traveled to Israel last year, and the citizens in Israel actually thought that America was wavering in their support of Israel, our best ally in the Middle East, because of individuals like Ilhan Omar. So I'm proud to be on this committee. I will certainly, the Democrats get to choose who they have on these committees. And even though we've said that she should be removed, they've continued to place her on this committee. But it's good to have voices that will make sure that she's held accountable for what she says.
All right, Congresswoman Malliotaka.